Hi everyone, my name is Eddie Deline and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about the logic behind purchasing investment properties. It's a question that I get asked all the time, why do you purchase? So I wanted to do a quick video because every single day I'll speak to a lot of people, whether it be during the day, over the phone, in person, on the weekends, wondering why I'm purchasing property and what's the logic behind it. So I thought I'd throw a quick video out there so I guess at least some people will be able to watch it, gain a bit of value and just see from my perspective, my mindset about why I purchase the properties I do and why I'm going to keep purchasing investment properties over time, long term. So I wrote down a few things on the board. So I've obviously got the logic behind buying investment properties, my perspective from it, why I'm going to buy, how I'm going to buy and all that kind of stuff, and the types of properties. So the first one, obviously, metro buying. For me, I only purchase properties that are around metro areas. So metro, we're talking Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, the metro areas, so the metro cities. I don't purchase out 5 hours away in regional towns. I don't purchase 3 hours away, 8 hours away, 10 hours away. I purchase with metro areas. A few reasons being, the majority of the population in Australia lives in metro places. There's just more population there. More people are going to, be able to rent. There's more supply, demand. The properties themselves, that are within half an hour, 45 minutes, up to an hour out of the big cities. There's got, over time, there'll be more growth, there'll be more population growth, there'll be more infrastructure put in place. If you look at, depending on what, suburb you grew up in or what city you grew up in, if you're in any suburb, let's say you're in Sydney, for example, and for me, I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, so around Mount Druitt and Penrith and those kinds of areas. Over time, over the last 10, 15, 25, 30 years, 40 years, there's been a massive amount of people that's moved into the area. The population growth has just gone up overall in Australia. More people moving to Australia, more immigrants, more migrating to Australia, more infrastructure put in place basically. So no matter what, you stick to metro, in my opinion. Over the long term, I'm talking about holding properties for a long time, for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you're going to be fine. So regardless, there's a few reasons why I only stick to metro properties, and the logic behind why I purchase only a metro, obviously it's a bit more simple, less risk, that kind of thing. So rent as well, the logic behind buying investment properties, you're always going to have rental income. It's not like buying shares or Bitcoin or all that other kind of stuff. When you purchase a property in a metro area with good supply and demand and good rental demand, you can always rent it out. Everyone gets scared that what if it's not rented out right away and all that kind of stuff. If it's in a good area where there's lots of people and demand for it, it's going to be rented out. It's up to your property manager's job to handle that. I wouldn't even bother trying to rent it out myself. I always use a property manager, let them handle everything. Out of the 12 properties I've got at the moment, I don't try to manage them any myself. I started buying when I was 18, 19 years of age, and I'm 26 now, and I've got 12, almost 13 properties now. So yeah, regardless, rental income, over time the rents are gonna go up too. So they're not just gonna plateau. If you think you're where you grew up, or say location where you grew up, the rental income 20 years ago, what was that of the property or the suburbs? What were they around 20 years ago for where you were living at? So over time, rent does go up. It's along with inflation. It's timing it and all that's a whole different story. It's probably talk about another day. But overall, rental income. You've got money coming in every single week, no matter what you do. It's not just you're going to park all your money in a property and nothing's going to happen. You get rent. You buy a metro. Capital growth. There's number 3. If you buy a metro, over time you will get capital growth. Regardless, there's not state in all the history of Australia that has not gone up over the last 20 years. They've all gone up. You pick a place, Queensland, Adelaide, Tasmania, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, all that kind of stuff. If you hold for the long term, you will get growth. It's natural inflation over time. You hold for long term. If you have 5, 6, 7 properties today and you hold them for 10, 15 years, most likely they're going to double. If they're in metro areas, they might double sooner than that. They might double in 7 years or 10 years or 15 years. But if you hold for over long term, they're most likely going to double. So if you buy them right now for 300,000, say for example in Queensland, you buy something for 300,000, a townhouse, a house, or a pretty cheap house, half an hour, 40 minutes away or something like that, or even Adelaide, hold it for 15 years, it's going to most likely will double. Number 4, no debt over time. You got to think about the long term. For me, out of the 12 properties I have at the moment, they've all got loans on them and that kind of stuff. There's some that I could reshuffle and I might be able to sell, this many and pay the rest out and, have everything paid off. But the reason why I don't do that is because regardless, over time, you're not going to have any debt. They're going to naturally pay themselves off. If you, right now, if I just stop buying right now, majority of the properties I've bought, were a couple of years ago or more, some 6, 7 years ago that I bought. Usually loan terms 25, 30 years, depending on which bank you go with, what property you purchase and all that kind of stuff. But over time, the thing's going to pay itself off. You've just got to be in there for the long haul. The problem is, I find that most people only buy 1 or 2 properties and think that's going to get them to retirement. That's going to help them, quit their job. But it's not. You need a lot more properties than what most people think in order to have the flexibility and freedom and that kind of stuff to be able to quit your job or go out and holiday and all that kind of stuff, or relax in your 40s, 30s, 50s instead of working all the way to your 70 years old. So, just as an example, if you're 30 years old and you have 5 properties right now, say you bought 5, you're 30 years old and you bought 5 properties, and you have 5 properties at 30. Years old. Right. So you got 5 properties at 30 years old. Regardless, those properties, say you have a 25-year loan, they're going to be paid off by the time you're 55. So at 55 years old, you're going to have 5 properties owned outright with no debt, regardless of what you do. Say for example, if you bought those properties and you're roughly 30 years old, I'm not even 30, I'm 26, but say if you had 5 properties and you bought, high yield properties in metro, low entry prices, and they paid for themselves, they didn't eat into your wage and take money away from you, they weren't negatively geared, they're neutral, positive geared. Say if those 5 properties were rented out for $300 a week per property, and that's $15,000 per year in income. So 15,000 times 5 properties, you're looking, 30, 60, $75,000 of income per year, per annum, times 5 properties, so 75k all up roughly. Over time, over that 25 years, do you think that the rent's going to stay the same over 25 years? Absolutely not. The rent's going to probably go up to $450, $500. Over 25 years, it's most likely going to be $450, $500 a week in the future. But let's just say, worst case scenario, it only goes up $400, it only goes up, over 25 years, it only raises $100, which you can raise your rents, $100 in 5 years sometimes. You just put up $20 a week and, you're almost there. Let's say it only goes up to $400 a week and you still got times 5 properties. So $2,000 a week coming in. So you got almost 100k in income 100K per year in income per annum at 55 years old, regardless, with no debt. You might have to pay, 20 grand in council rates and other rates, etc. Alright? So if you have 5 properties at 30, you're going to be sweet by the time you're 55. Just basic. If you have 10 properties, you can probably walk away with $200,000 or $300,000 worth of income by the time you're 55. If you have 15, even more. But it's just this simple equation about, how many properties do you need to get you to retirement, and you can relax at 55. You could do it much sooner. I did it much sooner. I started purchasing properties and got up to 12 and almost 13 now at 26. They go up in value over time, so your capital growth goes up, your debt goes down regardless. Even if for some reason, they never go up and you've got 5 of them, you're going to be paid off in 25 years anyway. You'll probably pay them off in 20 years, 15 years. Because your rent's going up over time. The more rent that comes in, you just put it on the loan. It's not affecting your lifestyle. You can still go to work. You can still do whatever you want. It's just basic. It's logic. To me, it's logic over long term. The last thing is obviously have high yield properties in capital cities. For example, Adelaide, Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Hobart, and that kind of stuff. Those are the areas that have really been held back. Just go up over time. So that's just my thoughts, I guess. I feel it's a very, very basic logic. It's very, very basic, but most people don't see it like this. That if you just purchase properties, you build a property portfolio, 5, 10, 15 properties, whatever the case is, and you just hold them over time, they're going to pay themselves off regardless. It's a no-brainer. You're going to be fine. You won't have to just hope and pray that you're going to get Centrelink or you just hold and pray for your super. Right now, if you had 10 properties right now and you just didn't buy another one for the rest of your life, just kept renting them out, kept putting the rents up every year as much as you can, you'd be retired 15 years, 20 years at the latest. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I'll leave it with you. If you have any questions, send me an email through at admin@delanepg.com or give me a call on the number. Thanks guys, see ya.